Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second shelf and to another Recent Reads on Sundays, the second in a row. Can you believe it? Anyway, for those of you who might be new to the channel, welcome, first of all. And in the Recent Reads on Sunday, I discuss, like the title says, some of the books that I've read recently. And the first book I want to talk to you about is a book that I've actually read quite a while ago, but when I went through my Goodreads shelf, I realized that I forgot to incorporate it in a Recent Reads. And that's a shame because I really liked it. And that is Nora Ephron's I Remember Nothing, published in 2010, an essay collection. Nora Ephron, you probably know. She was an American playwright, journalist, famous for romantic comedies like Sleepless in Seattle, When Harry Met Sally. And she also published an essay collection before that, I Feel Bad About My Neck, Reflections on Being a Woman, which I thought was hilarious. She was born in 1941, and sadly she passed away in 2012 from leukemia. So this is her last collection. It's quite a thin collection, and like the title said, it's reflections. She was diagnosed with leukemia in 2006, so way before she started compiling these essays. And of course, knowing as a reader that this is her last book and that she died 2 years after the publication, you read it, or at least I read it, with that knowledge in mind. The essays are not about her illness or about death, even though a lot of them feel like a swan song in a way, because she talks about her love for journalism. It's a sort of a wrapping up feeling you get. But again, that could be because I know that this is the last one. There's one essay, however, the last one, in which she talks about things that she will miss. So I don't think I'm entirely wrong when I feel that this collection is a wrap-up of her life. It's beautiful, it's funny, like she always is, so it's not a sad collection. I'm sad because I really love her work, and I was sad that she died. But if you're into these humorous but still essays with depth about her life, about writing, about journalism, about her childhood, then I can certainly highly recommend this tiny little book. The next book I read is a debut novel, and that is Emily Bitto's The Strays, published in 2014. Emily Bitto is an Australian author. She published in magazines and newspapers before publishing her first novel, and I read this as part of a readathon that is going on in April, hashtag Aussie April, organized by Jaclyn from 6 Minutes for Me and Doris from All the Books. And if you don't know both of them, please go and check them out and subscribe. Jaclyn lives in Houston, but she is originally from Australia, and the idea behind this readathon that she organized together with Doris is to read more Australian literature, fiction, non-fiction, Australian authors. The prompts are, it's an easygoing readathon. There are a couple of prompts in order to help you find books. And I picked this one for one of the 4 prompts, read a Stella Prize listed author. Now, this book actually won the Stella Prize in 2015. If you're not familiar, the Stella Prize is the Australian prize for women's fiction and non-fiction. And I was really interested already back then, and thanks to the readathon, I finally picked up the book, and I really, really enjoyed it. I can hardly believe it's a debut novel, to be honest. The book is set in the 1930s for a big part, and our main character is Lily. She's 8 years old in 1930, and she meets Eva in school, and they become friends. But the book is not told in a straight timeline. It opens many, many years later, 20 or 30 years later, or even more, when Lily looks back on that time when she was friends with Eva, and how things fell apart. So from the beginning that things didn't turn out well. So that's not a spoiler. Eva is the daughter of an artist, Evan, and his wife, and the artist, they live this sort of bohemian art scene life in Melbourne. Having strays, taking in strays, and they don't mean non-human animals, but humans. Young artists who struggle, can't pay the rent, a sort of communal life idea. And Lily ends up being one of the strays due to her family situation. She also lives for a while in Eva's house. Lily's background is, not a poor family by any means, but they struggle after the father had an accident and lost his work. And they are conventional, very conventional. And Lily is enthralled by the unconventional lifestyle and household of Eva, her friend Eva. And of course, things then go wrong. I'm not going to tell you how, because that would be a spoiler. But it's a really tender portrayal of, first of all, a friendship and how the friendship falls apart due to circumstances, but it's also a portrayal of a different kind of family, of an artistic outlook on the world. So yes, I definitely enjoyed this book, and if the topics that I mentioned, if they appeal to you, then I would highly recommend that you pick up this book. The next book I read and want to talk to you about, I also read for Aussie April, and that is Geraldine Brooks' Year of Wonders, published in 2001. Geraldine Brooks is an Aussie author. She was born in Australia, and I picked this book for a prompt, cheating a little bit with the prompt, because the prompt says, read an Aussie author you've been meaning to get to. And even though I've been meaning to get to this book by Geraldine Brooks, I've read other novels and nonfiction by her. So it's not quite, but like I said, it's an easy readathon, so you can cheat a little with the prompt. I also did that this book as a buddy read together with Jaclyn and Doris, whom I already mentioned, and Natalie from My Reading Days, and Amy from Amy Poole. And of course, I will leave links to their channels down below as well. The Year of Wonders is Geraldine Brooks' debut novel. She published nonfiction books before, because she started off with nonfiction. She has a background as a journalist, but this is her debut novel. It's historical fiction set in the 17th century, 1666 and 1665 to be precise, in a small village in Derbyshire during plague season. So the village is hit by the plague in 1665, and we see the story of that village based on a real life village that experienced the plague in the 17th century and decided to sequester themselves. So the inhabitants decided to sequester themselves, not flee, in order to prevent spreading of the disease. And Geraldine Brooks took this real life event and then is weaving a story around those events. The book is mainly about the year of the plague in 1665, but it's framed with chapters the year after. So it starts in 1666, meaning you already know after you read the first chapter that a lot of people died. So it's not a book about who will survive this horrible year, but it's a book about how the village dealt with the disease and how they dealt with the fact that they decided to sequester themselves. It's told from the perspective in third person, but from the perspective of a main character, Anna, who is 18 years old when the plague hits, but she has already lost her husband to a mining accident, and so she is a widow with two young children, two boys. So the story is told from her perspective, what happens during that horrible year while the plague hits the village. But it's also a story about her development, how she develops personally during that year and what she will do after. There's a lot of herbal medicine that Anna gets interested in, which is really well researched. And what I liked most about the book is Geraldine Brooks is, I think because of her background as a journalist, she is a fantastic observer. She can picture people and scenes and really describe them very vividly. And in this particular book, she uses this ability to, for instance, really graphically and vividly describe the plague-ridden bodies. That sounds quite off-putting, but it's not, because her writing, Geraldine Brooks's writing, is so lyrical that you actually, quote unquote, enjoy those scenes. Maybe that says more about me than about, the book. But anyway, so these aspects I really enjoyed. What didn't really work for me was the way, the structural way of storytelling. It felt missing a sort of red thread as a storyline through the book, especially the year of the plague, 1665. It felt that Geraldine Brooks was stringing together anecdotes and episodes of what happened to certain people, but that there was, for me at least, a lack of a consistent going through storyline. So it was not a complete I love this book experience for me, but still, I thought the writing was really good. The observations were fantastic. The episodes as such, how she describes them, were really good. So if you're into historical fiction, and certainly into historical fiction with this topic of a plague-ridden village, you might, I think it's worthwhile picking up this book nevertheless. And then I just want to briefly mention that I just this weekend also finished Jamie Quattrone's The Fire Sermon, published in 2018, also a debut novel. I read this for the BookTube Prize, so I will just say that I was surprised by how much I liked this book, but I will hold off with the review until we've finished the quarterfinals end of May, and then I will talk more extensively about all the BookTube prizes I read. And finally, I also want to talk about briefly a book that I haven't finished because many of you have asked me in the comments. And I'm still reading The Tale of Genji, the 11th century first novel set in Imperial Japan. I'm reading this as a buddy read with Sean from Sean the Book Maniac. Link, of course, down below. If you haven't subscribed, please go and do so. This is an absolute junker. We started this in March, and we are reading one chapter a day. It's 52 chapters, so it will take us 52 days, beginning of May, until we finish. But I wanted to mention that we haven't given up on the book at all, even though it's quite challenging, and not so much because of the writing, but because there are so many characters in this book, and they are referred to by their title, not by their name, and their title changes in the course of the book. So it's really hard to keep all the characters straight. But we're both, we are more 2/3 through already, and I think we will finish in the first week of May, and of course then I will talk about it and how the reading experience was. But I just wanted to mention, for those of you who asked me, that no, we haven't given up on the book. It just takes a while with a chunker of 1100 pages like this. Anyway, this was it for my recent reads of today. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. As always, I'm looking forward to talking to you in the comments about the books I mentioned or other books you want to talk to me about. And I will see you all soon in the next one. Bye-bye.